going on, everybody? My name is John Solo, and welcome to another Star Wars theory. If there is one thing that all Star Wars fans can agree on, it's that George Lucas made the right decision putting Hayden Christensen into the final scene of Return of the Jedi. I'm kidding. If there's one thing that we can agree on, it's that there's a lot of characters in the Star Wars movies who you wouldn't realize were as important as they were if you hadn't done any research into the expanded universe. Wedge Antilles is one, Darth Maul, Grand Moff Tarkin for sure. A lot of these characters are saved by the expanded universe, whether it be the novels, the comics, the animated series, etc. However, there's one character who, even when you take his backstory into account, remains as lame as ever. Count Dooku. We're introduced to the Count in Attack of the Clones as one of the masterminds behind the Separatist Alliance. But outside of his use of Force Lightning, the first that we see in the prequels, and wackadoo lightsaber, he's incredibly underwhelming. This is where a lot of people would probably say to look to the Clone Wars for more adventures involving Count Dooku, but I feel like even here the character falls flat. Although the series did an awesome job adding significance to characters like Commander Cody and Darth Maul, Count Dooku is only really utilized as a generic bad guy for our heroes to fight with. But what if I told you that Count Dooku wasn't really a bad guy at all? What if I told you that the reason we never learned about all the times he was a total badass is because he's the only one in the galaxy who knows about them? Okay, so in retrospect, that mic drop moment kinda sounds like I'm talking about your friend from first grade who claimed to have 6 girlfriends, but they all went to different schools so you could never meet them. So let me explain. In Attack of the Clones, we learned that Count Dooku was once Qui-Gon Jinn's master, but became disillusioned with the Jedi Order and left. At the end of the movie, we learned that he's actually joined up with Darth Sidious and plans on overthrowing the Jedi and taking over the galaxy. But there's a lot going on in between these 2 points that's pretty questionable. Questionable isn't even the word, nonsensical. Count Dooku says and does things that are totally counterproductive for someone who's trying to take over the galaxy. Things that would only make sense if he were a double agent. Let's take a look at the scene where he makes his first appearance. The one where he meets Obi-Wan, who at this point was being held prisoner by the Geonosians. The conversation Dooku has with Kenobi is an interesting one. It starts with some banter between the characters, but quickly gets serious when Qui-Gon Jinn's name is mentioned. Count Dooku says that he wishes Qui-Gon Jinn were alive as he could use his help. Kenobi retorts, saying that his old master would never join Dooku, and then the Count goes on to explain that the Republic is being taken over by a Sith Lord named Darth Sidious, and he warns Obi-Wan of the impending doom that the Republic is facing. He then makes Obi-Wan an offer: leave the Jedi Order and help me destroy the Sith. Ultimately, Kenobi rejects his offer and doesn't believe him, and you can't really blame him either. There's really no evidence outside of him to factor in outside of Dooku's word, and why would he believe a single word from someone that the Jedi Order had warned him was evil? At the same time, the audience is able to look at what Dooku's saying and know that it's true. So you gotta question why Dooku would say any of this to start with. Up until this point, the Jedi Order have remained totally clueless about the Dark Lord's plans. They know there's a Sith out there, but they have no idea just how influential and powerful he is.
But which was destroyed? The Master or the Apprentice?
And Dooku just gave the guy up. Straight up told Obi-Wan about Darth Sidious's plans. Why? Well, some of you might say that he's looking for an apprentice to help overthrow Sidious with. Maybe he was hoping to tempt Obi-Wan down a darker path that ended with them two taking over the galaxy. Okay, true, yes, that could absolutely be what he's doing. But let's take a look into Dooku's backstory before disregarding the theory completely. The main reason that he abandoned the rank of Jedi Master and left the Jedi Order is because of the corruption in the government. The story goes that after he left, he was approached by Palpatine and offered power in exchange for help, so he obliged. Maybe I'm wrong to be looking for a moral code in a Sith, but why would it make sense for Count Dooku to leave because of political corruption and then start contributing to the political corruption? It wouldn't. So here's what I think happened. I think that after Dooku left, he was approached by Sidious, and after hearing his offer, realized that this guy was definitely going to be a major threat to the Republic. And not just the Republic, but the future of the Jedi Order. He wanted to tell the Jedi because despite leaving them, he didn't hate them, and he still had friends who were a part of the Order, like Qui-Gon. But he knew that Palpatine was routinely able to worm his way into their affairs, so if they knew what he was up to, Palpatine would learn about it eventually. So he refrained and went with his next best option, accepting the offer and working as a double agent to spy on the Dark Lord. The only person who would know he was still loyal to the Jedi was himself. Now, we all know that Dooku did some horrible things, and you can see this all throughout the Clone Wars series. But you can't claim to be a Sith Lord and refuse to get your hands dirty. He was willing to sacrifice his name, his reputation, everything, all for the sake of a greater good. It may seem counterintuitive, but maybe in his desperation, that's all he had. To work with Sidious and build his trust until he could formulate a better plan, or maybe wait until the perfect moment to strike him down himself. And this is where Obi-Wan came in. This is where Dooku thought he had found his way out. The apprentice of his apprentice, someone in the Jedi Order that he could finally trust. That was until Kenobi refused his offer. Not only refused him, but disregarded everything he said.
I don't believe you.
The Count took a gamble in telling Obi-Wan this information he risked his life for that cost him his life ultimately, and nothing came of it. A few years later, he was killed by Anakin, and everything he could have warned the Jedi about was lost. Palpatine's plan still went into action, and he was able to take over the galaxy. So what's the significance of all this? Taking into account all the things Dooku did for the greater good, did it do any good in the end? Well, he generated suspicion. In the days following his death, Obi-Wan had remembered what Dooku had told him. Suspicion grew in his mind that perhaps the Jedi really were being manipulated. It was this suspicion that led them to becoming wary of Palpatine, eventually uncovering that he was indeed a Sith and forcing his hand. Palpatine had to convert Anakin and kill all the Jedi sooner than he planned. Had the events of Episode 3 happened any later than they did, Padme would have given birth to her twin children already. You could argue that she gave birth at the end because she was dying and had to save her children, but just by looking at the babies you can see that they were perfectly healthy and wouldn't have been born much later anyways. Had Luke and Leia been born by the time Order 66 was enacted, there's no doubt that Sidious would have hunted them down and killed them. Maybe he would have kidnapped them, trained them in secret, and disposed of Vader when he saw fit. But instead, he didn't. Everyone thought Anakin's children died with Padme, and hope for the galaxy remained. And it's all thanks to the sacrifice of a Jedi who will forever be known as a traitor and criminal, Count Dooku. And that is today's theory. What do you guys think? I know this may seem like a bit of a stretch, but personally I like it. Count Dooku was a character that had a lot of potential, that some of which was explored in Legends, but not really in canon. At the very least, it being true would make watching episodes 2 and 3 a more enjoyable experience, and I'm a heavy proponent of anything that's gonna make me enjoy Star Wars even more. That being said, I do want to hear what you guys think, so be sure to let me know in a comment or by hitting that like button. Also be sure to subscribe for weekly Star Wars content and share this video with any Star Wars fans you know. Thank you all so much for watching. In case you forgot, my name is John Solo. May the Force be with you, and remember, John shot first.